I'll echo Tom's thanks. Thanks, Tom. Councilmember Penny, Tiana, Danielle, and Melanie. That's the power of the Endangered Species Act. A question in the audience got me thinking. These success stories, these wonderful stories that are just really heartwarming and pretty impressive, demonstrate the role of the Endangered Species Act as a catalyst for success. So there's a theme in all these stories about the importance of partnerships, the importance of stakeholders, and the importance of collaboration. And what I would say, in my experience with the Endangered Species Act, yes, some of these big projects might be led by very visible, very charismatic species, but the trust and the relationship building through these solutions, these long-term enduring conservation outcomes that result from partnerships like you heard today, is what not only allows for a strong Endangered Species Act, but it allows for repeated and enduring success. And that's what's important. And the Endangered Species Act allows for that over and over and over. It is the catalyst. Without the ESA, those successes clearly would not be happening. So our next keynote speaker can definitely speak to this topic. As Assistant Administrator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Marine Fisheries Service, holy cow, that is one title. Janet Coit is charged with the stewardship of our nation's marine biodiversity. Like Director Williams, she's also defended the Endangered Species Act against recent congressional attacks, testifying at that same subcommittee hearing I was talking about earlier, highlighting the agency's science-based approach to implementing the law and supporting species recovery through innovative technologies. Janet has had a long career in public service, amazing success, and has had decades of experience working with the Endangered Species Act. And for that reason, among many others, she's in an unbelievably unique position to share her perspective on the importance of this critical statute. I'm thrilled that she's here with us today, so please join me in welcoming Janet Coit to the podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to my fellow speakers and to the many organizers and sponsors of this event. It's a pleasure to be here and wonderful to see so many familiar faces. Jamie and I worked closely together on these same issues 25 years ago when she was director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and I was counsel to the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. Both of us are passionate about conservation and recovering imperiled species, something I believe we share with all of you. When I started working in the U.S. Senate in the mid-'80s, the Endangered Species Act was not even a teenager. Now, I'm here as the head of the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the ESA is almost 50 years old. It is hard to believe. And how fortunate we are that 50 years ago, an overwhelming majority of Congress voted to support conservation of threatened and endangered species and the habitats on which they depend. One of our strongest environmental laws, ESA's purposes and goals are as relevant today as they were then, or perhaps more so. As you know, my agency, the NOAA Fisheries, is responsible for the stewardship of our ocean resources. We provide vital services to the nation, including supporting sustainable fisheries and protecting marine mammals, all backed by science. We aim to save the pieces, as conservation biologist Aldo Leopold advised, and we're strengthening the regulations, investing in science and technology, and looking to hasten the pace of our conservation efforts. The issues that we wrestle with every day are challenging and urgent, and they require the federal government to work with tribes, states, partners like Defenders of Wildlife and other nonprofit organizations, businesses, and individuals. The impacts to our ecosystems resulting from changing climate are making these issues even more difficult to confront in a timely and effective way. And we work in a charged atmosphere that often imposes shoals and barriers as we navigate our way forward. Several pieces of legislation drive our mission at NOAA Fisheries. the Magnuson-Stevens Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and the law we're here to celebrate today, the Endangered Species Act. NOAA Fisheries plays a key role in the implementation of the ESA. We are responsible for the conservation and recovery of more than 160 marine and anadromous species, and I truly cannot imagine more important work. This forum presents for me a welcome opportunity to consider the bigger picture, to reflect on our conservation achievements, and to support one another as we tackle the challenges now and into the future. So let me start by saying unequivocally, the Endangered Species Act works. It has put many species on the path to recovery, and since it was enacted in 1973, no listed marine nor anadromous species have gone extinct. In fact, the ESA has been remarkably successful at preventing extinction of the species listed under the Act, and that is worth a celebration. I spent my early professional career on Capitol Hill, and I was working for the late Senator John Chafee when I met Jamie Rappaport Clark. We both learned a tremendous amount from him. He taught me lessons that I think about every single day. These lessons include the importance of conserving habitat and connecting with nature, to respect others, to work with everyone, to always be open to learning, and to take the long view and keep moving in the right direction. He also always said it's important to recognize our successes. From the eastern Pacific gray whales to the humpback whale populations along the Atlantic coast, NOAA Fisheries has seen species recover under our watch. And populations of species like the Arctic bowhead whale and the Hawaiian monk seals, one of the most endangered seals in the world, are increasing. And technologies like the turtle excluder devices and development of ropeless fishing gear are reducing the impacts to species from the commercial fishing sector. We must continue to work together to identify and mitigate the threats to endangered species, to give them the chance that Martha mentioned. From mandating reduced speeds for our vessels traversing the Atlantic coast to protect large whales, to supporting removal of dams that block successful passage of listed salmon and other migratory fish, to vaccinating Hawaiian monk seals, NOAA is taking myriad actions to fulfill the mandates of the ESA. This work includes our work regulating many activities, and many of you are very familiar with Section 7 and other sections of the Act. Including with the growing offshore wind sector, we must ensure that new developments do not jeopardize listed species. And our work requires expanding investments in technology and monitoring as we confront the new threats posed by climate change. Managing NOAA Fisheries is an awesome responsibility, and I feel privileged to be at the helm of NOAA Fisheries in the Biden-Harris administration. To implement ESA, NOAA relies on the best available science. That is a key tenet of the statute. Our work with partners to improve scientific understanding of climate-related impacts on protected species is a major priority for NOAA. Our Species in the Spotlight initiative helps to focus attention and resources on 9 ESA-listed species at great risk of extinction. And we work in a whole variety of ways to mitigate threats with partners through use of innovative technologies, with new approaches to management, and habitat restoration. I'd like to focus on habitat restoration for a moment. The historic levels of investment that we're privileged to be part of now through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act are allowing us to work with partners to accelerate progress on habitat restoration. Recently, NOAA Fisheries awarded $480 million to fund over 100 conservation projects through these grant programs. The majority of these projects benefit listed species, and as one of the questions from previously, they also benefit a multitude of other species. When you focus on endangered species and their habitats, you are focusing on providing a healthy ecosystem that is important to so many other species. So the grants that I'm talking about have funded projects that we just heard about, rivers in northern Maine. They have funded coral reef restorations in the Pacific. They have helped to support taking down dams. And we have another $500 million currently on the streets looking for proposals. So that's really exciting. There are good things happening. Last month, they did a tour of the Klamath Basin from its mouth to the headwaters. I met with the Yurok tribe, I met with the Kirk tribe, the Klamath tribe, and I saw the restoration projects that they have going along the river. And next year, the largest dam removal and river restoration project in the U.S. history will happen on the Klamath River, when 4 dams will be taken down. That gives that river a chance to have a more natural function, and it represents so much hard work. But it's the beginning of a new chapter for a basin that was once our 3rd largest producing river for salmon. So as many have said, we face the inexorable threats from climate change, and that is sobering. Many of our children are anxious, and they're asking us, what are we going to do? We know that climate change is impacting the nation's valuable marine ecosystems and the communities and economies that depend on them. From California, where drought is impacting the salmon in its river systems, to the Caribbean, where reefs are dying due to the warm water, communities are suffering. This administration views climate change as the crisis of our time, with grave consequences if we don't take aggressive action now. Since these imperiled species are already at risk, additional threats from climate or habitat changes make their survival more precarious. And as Jamie mentioned, scientists estimate that as many as 1 million species are threatened with extinction. We have our work cut out for us. One of those species is the endangered North Atlantic right whale. And I want to close by talking about that. For me, the importance of our work was embodied when I saw an endangered North Atlantic right whale and her calf recently in Cape Cod Bay. These right whales are so rare that we cannot afford to cause the death of even one each year if we are to prevent them from going extinct. And because there are fewer than 350 remaining, scientists have given them names. The whale I witnessed is called Medusa. As big as a school bus, Medusa is over 50 feet long and weighs around 70 tons. She's 42 years old, and that was her 7th documented calf. As one of about 70 breeding females, Medusa plays an outsized role in the recovery of these magnificent species. Rachel Carson talked about the wonder of nature. And while it was thrilling to see Medusa and the other whales that day, I felt somber because I'm aware of their plight, and every day we feel the weight of their possible extinction on our shoulders. North Atlantic right whales face many threats. The leading cause of mortality we know, their entanglement in fishing gear and their vessel strikes. And because of climate change, these whales are altering their migratory patterns and feeding in areas that make them more vulnerable to these threats, including vessel strikes here and in Canada. So we use a variety of techniques, as I've mentioned, to study and conserve these endangered whales, and we're stepping up those measures. We're proposing new rules to reduce vessel speeds when whales are in the area and along the Atlantic coast, new funding to support ropeless options for trap fisheries like lobster. We're investing tens of millions of IRA funding into monitoring system and technologies. We feel a great sense of urgency, and we want to step up now. So despite feeling somber when reflecting on the plight of Medusa and her kin, I'm aware that, as Martha said, this sadness reveals the extent of our caring about impending dangers and the vital connection we have to the marine environment. In closing, as we discuss the ESA's successes and challenges, I hope we'll be inspired to do more faster together. And I also want to make sure that we keep talking, not just to one another, but the people who are not in this room, the people who need to hear the why, the people that we need to get on board if we are to meet our conservation challenges. All ESA-listed species play an integral role in their ecosystems. The stakes are high. Extinction is forever. Let's continue to work together to support the ESA, from the halls of Congress to federal agencies, states, tribes, environmental organizations, the business community. I agree with Jamie that we need to double down on this work and the awesome responsibility that ESA represents, and to be better stewards of the environment and the species that fill us with wonder. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I want to acknowledge all the wonderful people from NOAA who are here with me, who are so passionate and expert at this work. And I want to end by just committing to work with all of you. And it's truly an honor to be here with Jamie, Defenders of Wildlife, and all of you today. So thank you.